What up? It's your boy, Dick Incredible Man, and we are back at it again. And this is 911 Season 4, Episode 2. And I want to apologize for being all kinds of late. I felt a little under the weather yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to actually do my review. But we are here today, man, and let's talk about it because it got emotional. This episode was a continuation of the season premiere with the mudslide and everything still taking place. And we see that Athena is officially trapped inside the house with the lady, and they are in a dire situation. And I think that's the only case that kind of floated over from the premiere episode. And then everything else is everybody, business as usual. They're trying to solve all these other cases and help all these other people because a lot of stuff took place during this mudslide and this huge event. So they have to help multiple people. But at the same time, we also see May and Maddie in the call center still taking calls. Now, what I mean when I say that this episode got emotional is because a lot of the situations that took place this episode and a lot of the cases, as you will, directly intersected with our main stars and our cast and had kind of like a realization flow to it about this episode. Now, the very first case that took place this episode with the Hollywood sign and this whole little bantery group or whatever, they they brought like the lightheartedness to this episode because everything after that point got super serious and it really was emotional, and it was a lot of connection going on in the back half of this episode and directly after that very first case, because everything else was super serious and super intense. So we got these friends and they're on this whole little journey from Albuquerque, and they just decided to take a road trip and everything, and they end up in Hollywood, of course. And so they wanted to take a picture by the Hollywood sign. And one dude, he just feels, I guess he's just angry because, like they had to quarantine with his friend, his girlfriend. So like they just kind of been stuck together this entire time. And he's just throwing out all these barbs and everything. I'm sick of everything. I'm leaving. Then boom, bam, the mudslide takes place, takes down the Hollywood sign, and they're up there on this little hill. And boom, bam, that's our very first case for this episode. So long story short, we see their case, and the girlfriend and the boyfriend, they're fine. They ended up landing on the Hollywood H. And the dude is in some quicksand. Now, their whole little scenario is, it's still entertaining. We're going through it and everything. And then the dude that's in the quicksand was like, well, I have something to say before I die. And he tells the girl that he's in love with her. His friend's girlfriend, by the way, that's been staying with him ever since the quarantine. He's like, well, I'm in love with you. And like, you could tell that she kind of probably looks a little shocked because, like he up and said it because he's been so rude to her. But like maybe she kind of feels that way about him, possibly as well. And then his friend is looking on like, oh no, I can't believe you gonna sit here and tell me that you're in love with my girlfriend. And the dude is like, he was about to die, so he felt like he had to get that off of his chest. The next thing you know, and he's still steady seeking into the mud or whatever. And she's like, well, I love you too. Oh, you do? Oh, you love him too, huh? This dude was all kinds of upset. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, is it crazy? Because, of course they were quarantined together, so maybe some feelings did emerge in that process, but does she really love him? And then when it's all said and done, she was like, well, I only said that, to get him to be fine so he can try to get out of this mud and live, because he felt like he was kind of giving up just a little bit. But that whole situation was awkward. Hen is up there, was like, Captain, you need to come on back with this equipment because I don't want to be in the middle of this. Dude, it was crazy, but it was a nice, fun moment in that episode because everything got all kinds of serious. So we get back to Athena and the lady in the house, and then next thing you know, they're trying to escape, and the lady's like, well, I don't know if I should leave, So she's still dealing with something that's, that makes her not really want to live or whatever. So they make their way trying to get outside, and boom, bam, the mudslide takes place. And next thing you know, they fall further down the hill and back to where they begin in the house. But this time, the lady she's under maybe like some tile or something. I honestly couldn't tell. Maybe part of the ceiling. I don't know. But at the same time, we also have May finding out that her mom's car is there at this house that just came in this call. They can't contact Athena. She dropped her radio. Her cell phone is in the car. May's trying to call her. May's panicking. She's flipping out because at the end of the day, this is her very first day and her mom's first day back at work. So May's thought process is kind of rushing and ramping up a little bit, and Athena's in her own situation. But we, on the other side, we also have Buck and Chimney doing manual searches up and down this whole little mudslide area, and they come across a baby monitor. And this is where this entire episode just took a turn, man. They come across this baby monitor, and they're trying to find it using the radio frequencies to where it cuts in and out. So they find the baby, the house there the baby's in, and they get down in here. I'm thinking, well, they're just going to go rescue a baby, and that's it. But the writers for 911 love to just throw in a twist and shock you and shock and awe you and just mess with your mind and your mental faculties, because sure, the baby's in there. You can, and man, this episode took a turn, man. Sure, the baby's in there, and Chimney goes down a chimney, which was hilarious. Chimney went down a chimney, but the baby's in there. They find the baby, and Chimney sees that this old lady, she didn't make it. Like, she hit her head or something, and she's dead. But then when he finds the baby, we hear a whole bunch of screaming in the distance, and there was padlocks all on the door. Chimney busts the door open. There's like 4 or 5 chicks in here that's pregnant and held hostage. And they tell us, and she's telling Chimney at the same time, that this lady held them captive and took their babies. And I'm assuming like it was a whole like a black market type thing. She was selling the adoption and all the other stuff. But she would take their babies and they wouldn't see their babies or anything anymore. And she tricked them there. And son, this entire episode took a hard left, man. Like everything else, was like a follow-up and everything. And this was a follow-up from last week's episode. But this within itself was a case within itself, if you will, because these people probably would have never been found if it wasn't for the mudslide, man. But I guess you could say it's a good thing the mudslide took place, because without it, these people wouldn't have been found. And Chimney said something hilarious. It was like, I don't feel so bad that, she didn't make it anymore. I mean, she held these women captive. But this is also where it kind of got emotional as well, because we see Athena struggling in her situation and not admitting what she's really going through. We see Chimney struggling in his situation with Maddie and not really talking about what he's going through. He kind of shared a little bit of it with Buck about the fear and insecurities and him leaving and being terrified. But it's not until he's in there with the pregnant girl that's actually went into labor to where he kind of opens up, and she shares some of her insecurities as well, and they align with Chimney's and how he feels about Maddie. And that's very so often the case in a lot of these situations in 911, but it was so evident this time because the same thing happened with Athena. The lady decided to share a little bit of her past, and we learned that she was in a car accident with her sister, and her sister didn't make it, and she doesn't really have the will to live on. But also at this same time, we see that Maddie, now she knows where Athena is, and Athena has a hold of her radio, and she's talking to them. And Maddie, we know Maddie's a little concerned about Athena, and this is her being her first day out after her whole accident and attack. She tells Athena to leave the lady in the house and get out on her own. And I understand her thought process behind it. She's solely concerned about her mother. But with the job that you have as a 911 operator, you can't say, well, leave this lady here and get out. Sure, I know you may feel that way, and it's the wrong thing in general. You can't leave this lady here. Why do you think Athena even went back inside the house when she saw that it was collapsing just to save this lady? And this is her first day back. But in these moments, we see that Maddie also tells May that you need to take a break. But in these moments, we see Athena have a heart-to-heart conversation with this lady, and both of them kind of end up laying it all out to bear. And they both kind of get an understanding of each other's situations and what they both went through. And both of them kind of telling each other that it's not their fault and they're not to blame with what they went through. So they're going to strive to live and escape out of this place. And in long story short, they did. And Bobby was the one that went to rescue Athena. Of course, Bobby was going to be there, man. Bobby was not leaving Athena alone, and not solely because, you know, she's still going through some things, but because he cares, man. And Bobby's one of those people that, like, he cares, but he's not going to overstep. But, like, if you need him and at a moment's notice, he'll notice and he's going to be there. And that's exactly what he was for Athena this episode. But with Chimney and the pregnant chick, you know, both of them kind of laid their insecurities out as well. And Chim told the girl, you know, he's afraid. And she mentioned that she was afraid. But him being there for that girl in her time of need allowed him to also realign his thought process and know what he needed for Maddie. So now at the end of the episode, we see that he's there for Maddie in her time of need. And sure, it's going to be scary and terrifying, but they're both there for each other. We also see Carla and Christopher this episode, and we see that Carla's on the computer, they're Skyping, and she's reading Christopher a bedtime story, and Eddie's just up here, yeah. They both fell asleep. But that's not even all of this other stuff was good. We see that May and Athena have their whole moment. She was like, well, I don't understand, May, why aren't you going back to school? And May's like, no. You can worry about me, but I'm also very worried about you. And I mentioned last week that I would love for May to stick around more and be the 911 operator. I mean, she shouldn't neglect college, but I like her being a 911 operator. And it seems like it's kind of here to stay for a little while at least. So I'm super excited about that. But all of this other stuff that took place in this episode was fantastic. It was great. It was wonderful. We got to see Michael and his whole little situation. I can't remember the doctor's name. I really can't. We see them going through their thing, and that's good for them. But all of the other stuff was cool. It was copacetic. But the highlight of this episode is Buck's secretive lady isn't a lady. Well, it's a lady, but it's not a girl, or he's not dating her. It's a psychiatrist. Buck's going through some stuff, and he's been talking to a psychiatrist, and nobody knows. But the highlight is that how he's not being honest with his feelings. I like Buck being the playboy. We know Eddie can't be the playboy because he has a son, so his sole focus is on Christopher. I mean, as it should be. I mean, that, you know, but, and, you know, he's still dealing with, you know, the trauma of his wife and everything. But I want Buck to be the playboy. But Buck is the only one that could be the playboy in our group. Everybody else has, you know, a significant other, and they're together or doing their own things. So Buck is our resident playboy. And we see that Buck is going through a very difficult process, and he's going through some things, and some emotions are being drawn up with Buck. So if that's the step that he needs to take in the direction that he's going, I'm okay with it because I love Buck as a character, but I'm just laying out some of my thoughts in it as well. But overall, just a fantastic episode, and that wraps up the entire premiere. So next week is going to be its own thing and dealing with more stuff and everything. So I'm super excited for episode 3, man, because stuff has been fantastic and phenomenal in these very first 2 episodes. So I can't wait to check out the rest of this season, man. This is your boy, Dick Incredible. Don't forget to smash the like button until you can't smash it anymore. Comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.